It's casual, not formal. It's hosted by Rory Pendlin. Oh, and Renee in tow. It's time to start the show. 1, 2, 3, go!
Yeah, I have my mic muted. Welcome to another episode of It's Casual for the second time, take two. And we have an interesting guest on, somebody I've known for many, many years. He was here in Florida in the mid 90s when I was in the Orlando area doing different theater things. And he's just an interesting guy, period, from start to finish, and he's done a lot. He's done a lot of performance, different areas of performance, and I think you're going to find with me just a really fascinating guest. um, Renee, can we run some pictures of some of his performance stuff real quick before we bring him up, if I could? Some pictures, or actually let's go ahead and bring him up. Arnie Ellis, let's go ahead and bring Arnie up. There he is.
Hey.
All right, because I want to ask you about these pictures when we go through
Sure.
them.
Yeah.
So the first one.
Yeah. Yes. So this is my wife, Michelle Sims, and myself, and these are two characters that we created called Betsy Wetness and Sterling Silvers. And they're sort of, it's funny. My wife has a superpower, and her superpower is creating really crazy, awkward, cringy, weird characters that have all the confidence in the world. So Betsy Wetness is a self-styled sex pot that really kind of looks anything but. And it's super fun. And then Sterling Silvers is her common law husband slash manager slash Ed McMahon type character. And we have a couple of shows that we're going to be doing, one at the end of this year and then one next year. We're doing a Christmas show on December 12th this year in LA, and it's Betsy and Sterling in their living room having a Christmas party, and it's going to be interactive, and we're going to bring people from the audience up and sing Christmas carols and play games and do one of our favorite bits that we've done on stage before, which is called the Hot Stepmom Pageant. And Betsy, given her internet consumption, has decided that her big dream is to be a hot stepmom. And so we have a hot stepmom pageant. And then we're going to sing, 12 Days of Christmas, and Santa's going to show up. And obviously, that's why the decor and also the beard is going crazy, because I'm going to be spending a lot of December this year playing the highest status character you can play at Christmas time. But yeah, that's Betsy and Sterling, and they're super fun. And we have a long form show we're going to do next year. It's called Talent Shower with Betsy Wetness and Sterling Silvers, and it's essentially the Gong Show. It's the same kind of structure as the Gong Show. It's a bunch of sketches. The whole thing is a sketch show from beginning all the way until the end of the show, and then we're going to have a legit variety act on that's going to come and do a really cool old school. We'll find people that can like the Michael Rayners of the world and people like that do all kinds of cool, like juggling and cool variety act, and they will be the winners. But the judges, the dancers, us, all the stuff from the beginning of the show until the last act is full on sketch comedy, crazy acts, and then we have a legit variety act on at the end. And so we're gonna premiere that show next year, and then try to get it on the road some and get it recorded, things like that. It would be very super fun. So that's those characters. Yeah. Ooh, look at that.
There's Santa right there.
There is, yes, one of the Santas. So Those of you that live in Florida that know that there are rodent-based theme parks in the area also know that one of the theme parks has an area called the World Showcase. And for many, many years, they do a thing, and I think they still do. It's called Holidays Around the World. And every country has a different holiday storyteller. And there was a year where the UK Father Christmas may or may not have been yours truly. And then the next year, the Santa in Canada, as you can see from his Santa's lumberjack look. There you go. That's, oh my gosh, it's so funny to think about that, because I was in my mid-20s, I think. And but I've played Santa. I've played Santa a lot my whole life. I guess I'm just typed for it. And the good news is you only grow into that type
Same
the
here.
longer
Got the suit in the closet.
you better believe it, baby.
Yeah.
Okay, now this is
All right. This one I really want to hear about.
okay.
Ogre King, Nipple
No,
King, Emperor's New Clothes.
Oberon. It's actually Oberon from Midsummer Night's Dream. So there is a group out here in Los Angeles that I've been a part of for quite a few years now. It's really, really wonderful. It's called Toil and Trouble Burlesque. And the way I'll describe it is the troupe does what I will call Cliff's Notes or Spark Notes versions of full Shakespeare plays with comedy and modern songs and burlesque. And so this is one of our we sort of change the version of it every time we do it just a little bit. But Midsummer Night's Dream, I have been Oberon in Midsummer Night's Dream in Los Angeles with Toil and Trouble 5 times, something like that. And this is the last one we did this year, and it's at a really, it's kind of a famous bar in LA. I guess you could say it's called Three Clubs, and it's in Hollywood. And
Okay.
it's a place a lot of people know of. It's in a section in Hollywood that's right across from where the Broadwater is, which is like the Sacred Fools Theater. And a lot of the Hollywood Fringe Festival happens in those venues right in that area, including Three Clubs, which is a really cool bar that has an amazing performance space right next to it. And those Toil and Trouble shows are great. Okay, this is Citizens of Hollywood. May they rest in peace. Our Hollywood themed park there in Orlando. And we had a trio of guys called the Hollywood Public Works. And there have actually been quite a lot of prominent performers that have been a part of not only the Streetmosphere or Citizens of Hollywood group for decades, but we're also specifically part of the Hollywood Public Works. And the guy standing there with me is a guy named Steve Pernick, who brilliant comedic actor, great writer, super funny guy, playing his character. And then I played the boss,
He looks very
Lenny
Phil
Plummer.
Silvers there.
Yeah. Well, yeah. His character name was Buddy Flowers, and he was an ex vaudevillian that became part of the Public Works. And this was during our I believe it's during our Christmas party bit we used to do, where we all got ties at the end. And so super fun. And I love that it's in black and white. Oh, okay. So this is really fun. This is Buddy Boneman. And it was an idea I had a few months ago. This is at my apartment where I am right now. Michelle and I have a really lovely little 1-bedroom here in North Hollywood. And we've got this cool little fenced in back porch space that faces the street. And so I thought, wouldn't it be fun for Halloween if, Michelle, you could sit outside of the fence, and she was dressed as a fortune teller, and we had a little crystal ball, and then you get everyone to conjure the spirit of this Borscht Belt comic that pops out named Buddy Boneman that just does. And so I sort of had a Jimmy Durante thing. I'm like, hey kids, let me tell you a joke. And so so all night the kids were coming, and then some of them even started coming back and going, tell us another joke. And it was so much fun. It was so much fun. We got 2 giant bags of candy, and we were just making the kids, and we just gave it. It was so much fun being there for trick or treating, and yeah, so we did. Why not turn trick or treating into a little show, which is what we did. This is me, obviously.
This is from your
I'm
one
doing
man show, right?
Yeah, I'm doing a solo show right now called Cult, and essentially what Cult is I come out for about an hour. The subtitle of the show is a comedic experiment in improvised mysticism. So what I do is I come out and I basically do an Alan Watts Ram Dass shtick, and it's interactive. So I bring people up on stage with me. There's group exercises that I do, and the idea here initially, the reason I called it Cult was I wanted to create something where people could feel like they had been in a cult for an hour and then just got it out of their system. That's what I wanted with this show, was come in, feel like, ooh, this is really compelling. Like I could really follow this guy. I could start, but I just want get a taste of it and then leave. And the happiest thing in the world for me, be like, yeah, I was in Arnie Ellis's cult for 1 hour and then he let me go. And so that's sort of what I'm trying to do with that show. I've done it live a couple of times, and I'm going to do it a bunch more, and I'm going to try it in
Are they
different
handing out
venues.
Kool-Aid?
No Kool-Aid at the end. No. Yeah, no, the Kool-Aid is actually
Too
found
soon?
within. But no, it's within. It's happened within. And there we are getting married. So
That's
I
your
just wanted to
actual
mention
wedding. Now, I wanted to put this picture
Yeah.
up because I also got married in Vegas. I got married at the
Nice.
Viva Las Vegas. Didn't go the Elvis route because I didn't think my Chinese wife
Well.
would get into that at all. Or Spock. They had Spock too. You could get married by Spock.
I love it. Well, you know what's funny also about this weekend, Rory, is that it was while I had a gig. So I was booked. Joe Sanfilippo with Bonkers. A lot of you know Bonkers.
Yeah, Bonkers.
So Bonkers had some rooms in Vegas. And when I first moved out to LA, I was going out to Vegas periodically to work some of Joe's rooms. And there was a weird weekend where the place that I was supposed to headline was not quite, the showroom wasn't quite ready yet. So there was no Friday show. This was an interesting thing that Joe would book, where the first night I would do, which was a Thursday night. I did a Thursday night at a place called the Rampart, or in Rampart. It was a Marriott casino that was just sort of northwest of Vegas, just like right on the border there. And they had it was a great room, super fun Thursday night show. And the awesome thing about it is that the buffet that night was New York deli night. So you would get buffet tickets, and they had it was great, all the Doc Brown soda and all kinds of knish, and it was great. So I did that show. And then the Friday night I had off, and then I had to do a Saturday night show. But then the showroom wasn't even ready that weekend. It was supposed to be ready on Saturday. It wasn't. So I ended up headlining a show at the pool on Saturday night. But because Friday was no show, Michelle and I was like, why don't we? I'm like, I've got the room for free. We're going to have buffet tickets. It's going to be Vegas. It's going to be a blast. Why don't we get married and do the Elvis? Like I've always thought it would be so cool, because it was my second marriage. It was her second marriage. It's not like we were just going to go do it. Right. So we booked it and all that stuff. Turns out we had some family and friends and stuff that got wind of it. So they all ended up coming to hang out that weekend. And it really was one of the most wonderful, cool things. And this picture that we actually have a different picture on the wall. Let me see if I can tilt the camera. So do you see that picture that up there?
I see some pictures. Yeah.
Okay. So just above the guitars, you can see me and Michelle. It might be a little fuzzy.
Yeah.
Actually, let me walk over, because we have the ability. So I'll show the Elvis picture. That this is the one we got. One of those companies. Yeah, those companies that do the photo on canvas.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so we got that done, and it was, man, let me tell you, what a blast. That was so much fun, man. So much fun. And oh, and there's me.
Now,
Yeah, there's me
I
by
pulled
my
this
early
picture
years.
because it's amazing how you look like. Have you ever seen the movie Creep Show?
Yes.
I mean, who hasn't, right?
Yes. Yeah. Right. Right.
And the
Creep
boy in the
Show's
film
great.
is actually Stephen King's son, Joe. And you look
Hmm.
so much like Joe King here.
Yeah. Well,
It's
and
just amazing.
it's funny, when I was younger and I had hair and everything of as an adult, the person that I got more than any, people would always say, "You look like Stephen King." That's what
Yeah.
they would say.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can certainly see it there, I think. Yeah, that's me, very young man. And yeah. Oh, and I wanted to mention too about the cult show, just real quick, is that I'm gonna try to get it on the road, but I have also submitted it to Orlando Fringe. Now that's a
Oh, okay.
lottery, so in December they'll do the drawings, but I'm fingers crossed that I get drawn, because I'd love to spend, you know, some of the month of May out in Orlando next year. I think that'd be super fun. I was just in Orlando literally for 24 hours. There is a you know of the show Phantasmagoria. It's
Yeah.
a Yeah, it's a storytelling show in Orlando. It's an old friend of mine named John Dodonna, who is the director and the
Mhm.
creator of it. And my daughter Lainey, who she's 25, she did their Christmas show last year, and then this year she did their Halloween show and is doing their Christmas show again. And John Dodonna hit me up and was like, "Here's the dates for Orlando." And so I never do anything like this. It was super crazy. I got a plane ticket where I left LA in the morning, got to Orlando, got to a cab, went downtown, saw the show, surprised her. She had no idea. We went to dinner, and then I had her drop me off at Orlando Airport, and I got like on a plane at 5 in the morning and came back. It was crazy,
Oh
but
man,
it was
I've done
it was
that.
awesome. Yeah, yeah,
When
it was
I went up
awesome.
to see Mount Rushmore, I did a day trip like that. I had the driver
Yeah.
was waiting for me when I got up there in the late morning. I took pictures for an hour and a half there. Got back in the thing, went back to the
Took off.
airport, and I was back by like 9 o'clock that night.
What year did you see Mount Rushmore?
Oh my gosh, I want to say 2010.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. I'd like to see it again. I was in South Dakota for one summer, one year, and when I was in college, and I saw Mount Rushmore, which was amazing. And then not too far away, I went to where they were doing Crazy Horse, and
Right.
uh, I that at that time, I mean, like they had barely. I think it was just you could see sort of but I'd be interested to
That's gonna be
see.
his arm.
Yeah, exactly. It was like,
It's like
oh,
it's
one
like a
day,
hole in the
right, right.
mountain. Okay,
And I
can't you
think
see him?
there's pictures online, I think now, but I would just, there's something about being there and seeing it in person, which is why you would grab a cat and say, "I take me to Mount Rushmore. I've got to
There
see it."
you
Of
go.
course,
So,
of course.
all right. So we knew each other back. I guess it was the mid '90s to late '90s. We were
Yeah, it
doing
was we.
underground video with Zach Kennedy and Dave Black
Yeah,
here.
but also remember, before that, it was also, those were the Comedy Zone days in Orlando. Remember, there were two comedy zones. There was one on iDrive,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
there was one in it was on Lee Road at the Winter Park Holiday Inn. There was a Comedy Zone, and they had an open mic. And you
Mhm.
had been out you had been out doing comedy, but because you knew that we were doing open mic, you came. And those were the days of you got up on that stage. That's
Mhm.
where I cut my teeth as a comic, was on that stage.
Mhm.
It was always hosted by a guy named Chuck Jones, but Dean Napolitano, I
Right.
met Greg Hahn, Chris Edgerly, Kim Millwater, this woman Kelly Willett, who was hilarious.
Mhm.
Oh gosh, I'm forgetting her name. I'm going to have to remember her name. Oh shoot. Great female guitar comic who was super super funny, and I'm forgetting her name right now, and I'm so sorry, but she was great. And that was real. This was 94-ish.
Yeah.
93 into 94 into 95, somewhere around there. And I felt like it was such a cool scene. Like back then it was sort of that
Yeah.
Orlando stand-up scene was really, and it's still to this day. I mean, anytime I go back and visit Orlando and I hit up my buddies that are still doing it, it's still such a strong scene in Orlando, especially since the Improv came out there and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But back then, that early 90s, and
I saw
everyone
that
was
you also knew
killing it.
Kevin White, who is also
Yes,
part of the
yes.
scene. Yeah.
Yeah. Kevin, it's funny. I know, well, Kevin was, he was an actor at the parks, just like everybody, and
Mhm.
Sleuths and all this. And he
Right.
actually knew my wife really well before I knew him. I got to know him doing a gig at the parks, and then he started doing stand up, and along with a bunch of other guys. We used to do this. I think they still do it, in fact, but I was part of the first, I think, couple of we used to do MegaCon, and we had a thing
Yeah.
called the Geeks of Comedy. And it was great. It would raise money for the Hero Initiative for all of the artists and writers of comic books that, didn't have benefits and had been kind of, so it was raising money for that because they were all on an age. And Kevin was always a part of it, and a bunch of other folks. And it was a chance for us to get up in front of the MegaCon crowd and do like all of our sci-fi, comic book, pop culture related, like really lean into that kind of material super hard that might not fly in front of a general audience, but in front of a big convention crowd just went over all the time. I had a buddy named Ryan that did, like, you would never be able to do this at a comedy club, but you could do it at Geeks of Comedy. My friend Ryan dressed up as Rorschach and read from Rorschach's journal. And it was it was fantastic. It was super funny. People ate it up. Another friend of mine named Graham did a Klingon clown act where he had, I think his name was, Gorzo the Klingon clown, and he had a blue Klingon headpiece and a clown nose and the whole clown outfit as a Klingon, and he did inexplicable balloon animals and would just make it was Rory. It was so much fun. It was so much fun.
I
Yeah,
can't
yeah. Those
imagine.
guys are
Yeah.
great, man. Kevin and Mike Herlihy and all those guys that did that were Patty Hawkins, my friend Patrick Hawkins, who's now, his whole career now is hosting panels at conventions, and like he's sort of the go-to guy. Like uh uh people request him because
Mhm.
he's so good. He's like us, he's the kind of guy that will sit down with actors and talk to them about the first couple of movies they made and blow them away with how much he knows about, he'll sit with Henry Winkler and he'll want to talk about the one and only. I mean, that's the kind of guy
There you go.
Patty is. So they love him for that because
Right.
it's really cool.
Because he really knows his stuff. Yeah.
Yeah,
To
yeah.
show you what a small world it is, Kevin's wife, Karen, also went
Oh
to Lake
yeah.
City Community College with Patrick and I.
That's crazy. I had no idea that we had that connection because I love
Yeah.
Karen. Karen's awesome. I didn't know she knew Pat Galliano as well. Oh wow, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
She went to high school and junior college with us. Yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, just small world. You know how it all comes together. Well, again, a lot of us gravitated from there to Orlando because that's where the scene was. Where you could do acting and get in dinner theater and do the parks and stuff like that. And yeah, it
Yeah. You could
just kind
have,
of is what it is.
you know, yeah, you think about it. You have all the parks, you have all of the attractions that do shows, plus all of the dinner shows. And then you also have a fringe festival every year where people can produce
Right.
all different kinds of things they want to do. You also have SAC, where a big improv theater, but it's also a
Right.
space where people can put up sketch and put up different cool ideas. And it really is, it's crazy. And then, of course, you have the odd indie film here and there. You've got the odd thing that shows up here and there. But for the most part, it is, I think, just a haven for people that enjoy live performance.
Now, SAC Theater actually did a lot of the street performance in the Disney parks.
In the beginning, yes.
I know that they were part of Epcot because I auditioned and actually got a part, and then I had to back out. Unfortunately, I couldn't do it.
Yeah, they were the ones that originated the World Showcase players and Epcot. And here's a really funny story about that, and it's a story that I will tell sometimes if it's appropriate for people. So many years ago, I was in London. This was probably around 1996. I went to London and I saw the complete works of Shakespeare abridged. And it was running in a theater in London and it got amazing reviews. And a couple of the guys from that were in the show in London. And one of the guys, I think his name is Adam. He and I ended up meeting him after the show and we talked a lot and we walked to the train station so that he could get on the train. And what he was telling me, he was like, "This is great." He goes, we're sold out for a year. I bought a house in London. My wife and I are having a blast. We're working on some more shows. We're all just really loving it." And he talked about he and his buddies that wrote the show, and one of them, and they used to do just like SAC used to do. They lived in a van. They would go from Ren Fair to Ren Fair, doing their shows in the dirt, at a Ren Fair or a little stage. And one of their friends that was part of their group was the kid of a Disney Imagineer, I think, or no. He was somebody that was really involved in making those real life Disney movies, the ones about the animals, where they would go out and film the animals and then talk about, the fox, and you'd see the story, and it was the Disney real life. And the kid of that guy was part of this group, and he ended up going to become an Imagineer. But when they were starving and living in the van and driving from Ren Fair to Ren Fair, they pitched their show to Epcot at the same time SAC pitched their show to Epcot. And Disney decided, hey, we're going to go with SAC. Sorry, complete works of Shakespeare abridged. And they were all like in their 20s. They were super bummed. Oh my gosh, this would have been really great. But the thing that's cool to think about is that setback led them to keep doing the show, to the point that now, high schools do this show, colleges do the show, they rake in royalties. Anytime these guys put up a show, they can put it in any theater they want. In England, they were like, people thought it was like listening to Americans mispronounce British stuff. British people thought it was the funniest thing in the world. They were like, it got a really great, the London Times gave complete works of Shakespeare abridged an awesome review when they were in that theater. And I often think about that story because I think about things that may seem devastating when they happen to you, may be because you're meant for something else.
Right.
And I think
Everything
that's a great example. For sure. And those guys got to live that reality of the fact that, no, if you just believe in what you're doing, stick with it and keep doing it, because there may be bigger rewards at the end than what you're seeing right in front of you.
So again, you started out here in Central Florida, and
Yes.
you were working Disney, doing street theater, doing improv, sketch comedy, and you decided it was time to go out to LA.
Yeah, it took 20 years. I grew up in Pensacola, Florida, and I went to Florida State University and got my Bachelor of Fine Arts in acting, and followed a woman down to Orlando. I was in love, and this is a theme of my life. I will fall in love and then follow. And so I came to Orlando and I went, oh my God, what am I going to do? I'll just audition for parks. And I got a job in the parks, and then working that job, and then got involved with SAC, got involved with Theater Downtown for a couple productions, met a bunch of people, eventually got into stand-up. I think in many ways, stand-up is always, at least comedy, but stand-up and just being involved with sketch comedy and improv and things like that is something that is the thing that I think I really love the most. any kind of live performance where I can be in front of an audience. And the thing about a theme park job that's so great is that it combines all of the aspects of being in show business, where you're putting on shows and you're in front of an audience, and it also adds a layer of blue collar. You're clocking in and clocking out, you're going into work, I imagine what my experience was doing that job in Orlando was very similar to what people experienced in the old studio days in Hollywood. If you got one of those player contracts where you weren't a star, but you would go into MGM or you would go into Paramount or something as a contract player, and they would, like, every week you had, oh, today you're going to go be a cowboy in a bar scene and watch it, or you're going to have 2 lines in a war picture, or there used to be a day where in that studio system era where you could have sort of these, I don't want to say nameless, but second or third tier actors that weren't necessarily stars, but they were still making an honest living going in and doing those things. And that era, when it went away, I think that the place for people to go where all they want to do is they just want to work, they just want to perform.
Right.
And I think that theme parks, Ren fairs, a lot of that stuff has always been a haven for those types of people. And it's just unfortunate that studio system went. I mean, I know a lot of actors are like, oh, we hated the studio system, blah, blah, blah. But I think there was something to being able to have a contract and being able to have some work for a while as a performer in the movie industry. You know what I mean? Like there was something to that I bet was pretty cool. Like, wouldn't you have loved, like in the early 80s, being like working at a studio and be like, hey, today you're on Knight Rider and Kit is chasing you and you've got to dodge out of the way? I'd be like, that's awesome. Like, how fun is that? So,
well, even back in the early days of television, there were actors that would appear on all the different TV shows, and when you saw their face, you go, oh, that guy. But like you said, maybe you don't know their name.
Right.
Maybe you don't know it's Louis Nye or.
Yes, that's my dream. I always, when I was a kid, those were the people that I thought were always awesome. When you would watch all those shows, you'd watch Cheers, and it was that there was a couple of guys,
Royal Dano or Alice Ghostly, or you might not know them,
right,
but they were always there.
Yes, right. To have that whole like, oh, that guy again, he's really cool. And then that's where it is. That was, I think, in a lot of ways may have been my dream without me realizing it, is that I wanted to be that guy.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be that guy. I wanted
again,
to be
they've got enough anonymity that they could actually go out and have dinner without being harangued, throughout the dinner. So
I like
and
Target.
like you said, they're
Target
still working. They're still making money and royalties. And,
yeah, and you could go to Target and people are like,
"Is
that 100%? 100%. Those are the guys that are really, I always thought that was such a cool thing. And there's something about having that kind of job and knowing that you have a job to go to 5 days a week and, and all that kind of stuff. And so 93 is when I started at Disney, and 2013 is when I left to come to LA. And then I ended up working for another theme park for another 10 years. So I just recently decided to leave my theme park career, but it was 30 years. So to me, I was like, well, I mean, I think I've proven my sincerity. And I was at the end of it, not as a performer. I spent the last few years directing, which has been really, really great, super fun. But I'm setting all of that aside and I'm focusing on getting back to doing more of what I really love to do, which is getting up in front of people and making up my own stuff and making people laugh and getting out there and doing that sort of thing. Because at the end of the day, the stability and the security that comes with a corporate job also comes with a corporate environment.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just not for everyone. And I think sometimes if you're a creative person, if you're an artist, if you're somebody that, like, let's face it, performers have a tendency to have that delightful mix of insecurity and a little bit of neurosis with a tremendous amount of egocentrism and sell
Definitely
and
egocentrism.
borderline narcissism and all of that. It's an odd alchemy of explosive, like, whoa, which can be difficult in a corporate environment. In a corporate environment, there's a level of, well, I'll put it this way. You've experienced this because you were involved in theater, and we were talking about that, and everybody that's been involved in theater. Chances are anyone that is in show business has been in an acting class at some point where a teacher has told them, you need to respond with the truth at all times, connected to the emotional reality of what you're going through. So respond truthfully from your point of view with emotion. So responding truthfully with your point of view with emotion is 9 times, if not 9.9 times out of 10, the opposite of what corporations want you to do. A corporate environment would much rather have you be diplomatic, think things through, not have any emotion at all. And in fact, they will often portray emotion as being some kind of weakness or some kind of thing like that, like, don't respond emotionally. And so it is the opposite environment in which artists thrive. Artists need to have the freedom to rant and rave and create and work through. If you're an extrovert, you process
Mm.
things externally. People in suits don't want that around them, and it makes sense. I mean, you don't want that. It's like, if you feel like you have a really serious job to do, the last thing you want is some actor rolling around on the ground just screaming at the injustices of life. Or it's like, leave that, go to the green room and work that out. We don't. So it's an odd, for an actor to exist in a corporate environment, I think involves making conscious uh, shifts in a gear. You sort of have to have a backstage gear and an onstage gear. All of
Mhm.
the things that you carry with you as an artist, that emotion and the feeling and the need to make sense of everything and process it externally and really connect with people on a deep level, those are the things that are going to make you brilliant while you're on stage. But when you're backstage, you have to create a backstage gear that you can shift into, where
Mhm.
you're dealing with everybody in a much more rational, sort of like controlled way. Because let's face it, accountants, people that see numbers, people that deal with pie charts, people that are operationally minded, people that deal with organization, people that deal with more, let's call it, left brained considerations, um, rarely are able to handle that kind of crazy, neurotic, insecure, demonstrative, out there energy around them. They need they need a tranquil world with which to calculate what it is that they're doing. Whereas we're all like, throw the paint anywhere, it doesn't matter.
Now, you're intriguing me with this because you went out to LA for performance. Am I correct?
Yes, for sure.
Okay,
And yeah,
but
and
you were
so
thrust into a work environment, a
oh,
corporate
no, no, no,
environment.
I wasn't. No, I what I did was, because
It
I
sounded
had
like
been
the
at
voice of
Disney.
experience.
Well, for sure.
So,
I mean, these are things we have to think about. But no, I
mhm.
I took the job because I needed a job. I mean, here's the thing: you
Mm.
come to LA, and the bottom line is, I think Florida is starting to experience this now, but it's been for decades here. Rent is crazy.
Oh
And so
yeah,
you get to LA and you're like, whoa, I've got to get some kind of job. And the other
I got to
thing
get a
about
day
LA
job.
is, for sure. And it's like, well, why don't I just go back to my old tricks? I know how to operate in this environment. I know how it works. And I will just do it so that I can make a steady income and then try to take my chances at something else. But then, what ends up happening, this is really what ends up happening in our lives, I think, is that if if we continue to do what it is that we think we're supposed to be doing to survive and think that, well, one day the time is going to be right, the fact of the matter is the time is never going to be right.
Yeah.
Is do it now. Do it now. Whatever it is that's driving you, whatever your passion is, whatever that thing is. And many times these kinds of jobs can be sort of like what they call golden handcuffs, where they could be like, they're giving you the illusion that you're getting to do what it is that you really love. But at the end of the day, what they're really doing is keeping you from going for all of it, which is
Mm.
scary and dangerous. And you have to take a leap, and you can't have stability sometimes. And you have to go where life takes you. And that's what you got to do, you know. Oh, I told you. So let me tell you real quick the story about before I came to LA. So I
Okay.
had a little bit of a coup in my stand-up life, and that was I had a couple of really cool gigs in a row, and one of them was doing a thing called uh, Comedy for a Cause, which was at Harvard, and that was a really fun gig. I got invited. Somebody saw my tape. It was actually a friend that had done it before and suggested me, and they looked at my stuff and said, "We'd love to have you come out to Harvard." And I did a gig. It was at Memorial Hall in Harvard, which was it's like being at Hogwarts. It's one of those lecture halls. It's really historic stage. It was super fun. But I mean, a stage that a lot of prominent people in history had been on that stage and spoken. And here we are telling jokes, super fun. There was one of the guys that I met on that gig was a guy named Harrison Greenbaum, who is a amazing comic magician who's really great. And we've kind of kept in touch over the years here and there. He's been on Masters of Illusion, I think, a handful of times. Really good dude. But that was an awesome gig. And it was Harvard. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. And then shortly after that, I was invited to go to my alma mater, Florida State, and do their homecoming
Mm.
opening for Craig Ferguson. And this was in, I think it
Wow.
was in, yeah, it was awesome. 2012. It was at the Leon County Civic Center, 10,000 people, sold out. It was, and I did 20 minutes, and then Craig Ferguson was the headliner after all the festivities. It was an amazing event.
Right.
I did 20 minutes and it felt like two. It was just one
Yeah.
of those things where it's like that was 20,
Flies
like it
by.
was crazy. The energy, there's people at 10,000 people, just to feel that you're in, like you have a mic, you're on stage in front of 10,000 people. It was nothing like it. And I had a weird little thought. This is where my brain goes. I'm standing in front of 10,000 people doing comedy, and I get a laugh. And my brain says, that's why Ozzy hasn't retired. That's literally the thought I had. It's like, I can imagine if, whether you're musician or anything, if you can get in front of an arena and get an arena rocking,
Yeah.
what
There's no feeling like
compares to,
it.
there's no feeling like it. So that was a really cool gig. But what was really fun about it was I did my set, I come off stage, Craig Ferguson is standing there, and he says, "You killed it. You have to come do my show. Give my guy your info," which I did. I get a day later, the segment producer for Late Late
You
Show with Craig
killed it.
Ferguson gets yeah, and he was like, "Hey, we're gonna have you come out and do the show. We don't
You
fly
got to come out
anybody
and do the
out."
show.
Yeah, yeah. So his segment producer's like, "Hey, listen, let me know when you're in LA. We'll get you a spot. We don't fly anybody out or anything like that. It's just if you're coming through town, we'll put you up." And I was like, "Great." So immediately, Michelle and I planned. We had so many friends in LA. Well, let's just take a trip to LA just to see what LA is like. I'll go film my Ferguson spot, la la la. So that's what we do. Hang out with friends, super fun. I get to do Late Late Show with Craig Ferguson. A car picks me. This is, I'm from Pensacola. I'm from the trailer park. This is all like, you read about this stuff. You have no idea that it's ever going to happen to you. A car
Right.
picks me up, takes me to Television City, to CBS. I go in. I have my own dressing room. It's right next door to Colin Firth's dressing room. I go inside. My name is on it. There's a gift basket. Eventually, they say, "Hey, do you need anything that you're going to wear pressed and all that stuff?" And Then they quick rehearsal. We come out on stage. Camera one, look right at the audience, do your thing. A couple, maybe a week before that, I had to send my act in so that standards and practices had to approve every word of my act, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
That's all taken care of. You're right. I go in, I film the spot. The way it worked on Ferguson was Craig Ferguson filmed his entire show. And then I believe at the time he had a kid in 8th grade or something. And so he would film the show and then immediately leave to pick up his kids from school. And then you would go out and you would film your spot in front of that audience, but they would put it in the can. And then they would wait until there was an episode where they had like 3 minutes to spare or something. And they would film Craig Ferguson saying, now, welcome to the stage, blah, blah, blah. And then what you were watching was pre-recorded, was taped.
Okay.
So the segment producer tells me, it's usually about a month or 2 or something. We'll let you know when it's going to air because it's going to be on our YouTube, blah, blah, blah. I'm thinking, great. So I'm thinking, okay, cool. Doing stand-up as long as I've been doing, this is at least going to give me a YouTube link where I can say, hey, check me out on Ferguson. And then maybe some of the rooms that I haven't been able to get into yet, or certain people that are seeing me just as a feature, because I guess what I would say is I'm what they say in the business is a B room headliner and an A room feature. And so I'm thinking, okay, cool. This will be the beginning of something.
Yeah.
So a couple months go by, all that kind of stuff. I got paid and everything was great. I got like this was before the SAG-AFTRA merger. So it was just AFTRA. And I got paid for like a co-star rate for the day or something. It was really wonderful. Everyone was super nice. So I get a call from the segment producer eventually, and he says, hey, listen, I got some bad news for you. We changed sound stages and your background is not going to match. And it will never air. Yes. And so I was like, okay. I mean, what can you do? I was like, well, thank you. Like, thanks for the opportunity. And he was like, hey, listen, if you ever come through LA again, we'd love to have you on again, tape another set, la, la, la. Then by the time I ended up moving out to LA, I think Ferguson was done within like 2 months or something. Like it was just at the tail end of the show. And what's funny though is that story, that sort of near miss type situation is way more common than I think people realized. It's
yeah, that's Hollywood.
Yeah, I mean it's just the way it goes, right? And the truth be told, I mean, like, it's like, look, it's not like at that time I had a bunch of road gigs booked. It's not like I was up every weekend. It's not like I was, because at the end of the day, if you are that guy, like if you have a stand-up career that's like that, where you've got a schedule every year, you're doing certain rooms like once a year, twice a year, whatever it is, you're on the road, then chances are, okay, great. Then you go just film it again or whatever. I basically had an in, but then it just ended. So, but look,
and you
the good news
you don't want to make things awkward by asking for a copy of the video so you can post it to YouTube. You don't do that.
It's funny that you say that, Rory, because that is the first question I get from everyone. Is like, do you have the footage? And I said, no, I didn't. Like, it made no point. Like, it belonged. I mean, again, this is where the being on the corporate side of things as a performer kind of helps you understand some stuff. Like, it didn't even occur to me to ask for the footage because I already knew in my head it belongs to them. It never aired. It's like, I really have no right to it because it wasn't my facility. It wasn't my cameras. It wasn't my any of that stuff. All of that stuff like having me on the show was an expense to them. That, I mean, paying me the green room, the time in the studio, the everything else. So for me to go, well, can I have it's their footage. So it didn't even occur to me to ask. And and it's just one of those things. It's like, who knows if it even exists anymore. And it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, and you know this, Rory, because you've been doing this for a long time, you've been
involved. Got the credit.
I did. I
You
did.
were on the
I
you
did.
were on the show.
I was on the show. But when you know you're going to be doing something for the rest of your life,
Hmm.
um, this I don't know that I've ever felt like I was in a rush. I always feel like things are just what they are. Like you just have your experiences, and if you know you're going to be doing something forever, then you know that you're going to have your ups and you're going to have your downs. And the thing is, I can't even call that moment a down. It was an amazing experience. I
Yeah.
I took a picture of Colin Firth's name on his dressing room, and I think his wife was in there at the time, and she introduced herself, and I said, "Hey, I'm the comic. I'm next door. I love Colin Firth. I ever since A&E's Pride and Prejudice and all of this kind of stuff, and I just kind of want proof that I was next to him." And she goes, "Oh, that's so," like she laughed and she was super sweet, and it's like,
Yeah.
and then I saw him, did not say one word to him because he was working. He was doing the show that day. He was a guest, and there were a couple of times that we kind of made eye contact and just sort of nodded at each other in passing. But I didn't want to bug him. But just the fact that I got to get that picture, which I lost, unfortunately, but it's
Oh,
fine, and got to have that interaction with a woman that I believe was his wife. I'm not entirely sure because I didn't pry, but just those kinds of things. Like the thing that I will always have is the experience of doing that and how cool it was.
yeah.
And yeah, it was cool. And who knows, the business has changed a lot. I'm excited about the fact that we live in now in 2023, and I'm starting to see people filming their own specials and putting them out on YouTube, and
Yeah.
those things that we used to think of, all of those gates that we needed to navigate in our career to be able to do certain things. And so, I mean, look at this, what you're doing right now. So many of the things that we love to do are just accessible to us, and it's really just
Social
up to
media
us to
has
do them.
definitely changed the game as far as, yeah, what you're we're coming up on 100 shows here for It's Casual. I mean, and I did it actually at back in the late 80s, early 90s. Before I met you, I did It's Casual for a couple of years for
Oh,
Jones
fun.
Public Access Cable.
Yes.
You know,
Public, that okay, that
so
was an era. Do you agree that public access was an era that ended like it didn't last long enough? It
well, thanks
really
to
didn't.
Saturday
It,
Night Live, it kind of got dragged on a
right.
little longer with
Right,
with Wayne's
but I
World
just
and
thought,
whatnot.
what a wonderful. It's like the old days of the. I have a friend that got
But
involved
this is that
this
now.
year.
The social media is
Yes,
that now. Yeah.
well, it is. But there was something about the production value of public access that made it super fun. It gave you that local affiliate feel, like the local horror host, and that
Yeah,
every
I
town
know. I
had that
know.
would come on. And I, come on, I miss that. Because it was just there. I don't know. There's
Like
something fun.
Dr.
It's
Paul
like,
Bearer.
yeah, right, right. Come on, that was a really fun era, man. That was a really,
Yeah.
and I think all too short, all too short.
Yeah.
But now we
The
have
amazing
this.
things
Now
we
we
do with
have this.
CGI and stuff today, we didn't have that back then. It was all that video looking
Yeah,
CG.
yeah.
Yeah, I never really thought about that. One thing I did want to ask you, I said I was going to probably ask you about this before the show. As far as performance, I've got on my notes here Florida versus LA. Because you said something before the
Oh,
show
interesting.
that how do you weigh them up as far as production? Because there was a
You mean
time here where they thought that Hollywood was going to move to Florida and start making movies in Florida,
right, right.
and they were gonna try to beat the
Right. They
uh,
wanted to have Hollywood South. That's what they were calling
yeah
Orlando. Remember in the late 80s, they said it's Hollywood South. And a lot of people came there. And I think what ended up happening, like, let's look back. I think what ended up happening now isn't really Atlanta more like Hollywood South?
Atlanta has got some things going on, thanks to the Turner Network and
Sure.
like Walking Dead and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and Canada is becoming another
Oh,
hub,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And again,
Yeah.
they're
I
they're
know there's,
they're trying to cut costs, and get away from the unions. But again, the unions always get to these places and are like, "Hey, wait, we're waiting for you. Where you been?" They usually beat them out to these places. The unions killed it here,
Mhm.
because that's what they were trying to avoid when they came here. And the unions were like, "No, no, we're here. You didn't pull a fast one. You didn't beat us. We're here."
No. Well, you have to pay
So
people.
yeah,
I mean, it's like
and
you
that's
have to
that's
pay
so
people,
evident
and
now, especially with the strikes that we just went through, for the writers and the actors.
yeah,
So,
it's
but yeah, there's
it's
the Carolinas and Georgia. Yeah, they do a lot of production.
mhm.
But again, up in Canada, they're doing a lot of production too, and people are going up there to cut
Yeah.
costs and.
There's all the stuff that's been going on in LA is still going on. LA is a very
Mm,
interesting place. It's like any other big city. It's got its, LA is, everybody comes out here to LA to, go for the brass ring. And I think that's wonderful. And my experience has been just coming because I mean, I was 42 years old when I moved to LA, which a lot of people would be like, wow, that's way too old to move out to LA. But what I found was I got exposed to a lot of
never too old.
you know no, no, it's ridiculous. It's
Look
like
when Wilford
I
Brimley
would say
became
that.
famous, for crying out loud.
Well, dude, yeah. But the cool thing is like getting involved with Second City Hollywood, and getting involved with Toil and Trouble Burlesque and all of these other things I got involved with, and getting to meet people that are, they're in their 20s moving out here, they're in their whatever age they're moving out here. It's just so cool to be around the kind of talent that you see here in Los Angeles. It's one of those things where it's like there's I mean, you just got to keep at it, man. It's chess, not
Yeah,
checkers. That if you're good, you just keep at it. The most important uh, thing to do in LA, as far as I can tell, is figure out how to stay here as long as possible and stick it out. And
yeah,
the city itself doesn't make that incredibly easy. But then again, nothing worth
right.
it is easy. I mean, yeah, you hear everybody from LA talk about the same stuff, traffic, all that stuff. Sometimes it's a hassle to get 3 miles down the road. Sometimes it's a hassle to do this or that or the other thing. But there's also something really cool about being here and the history and the weather. I'll tell you this, after spending my whole life in Florida, I would not give up this weather for virtually no humidity. When the sun
Right.
goes down, it actually cools off, even in the summer sometimes. I mean,
Yeah.
it's, whereas sweat is your best friend in Florida, it's your constant companion. Here is, but what's weird is I've gotten acclimated now in LA. So this was by far my sweatiest year in LA, and I think it's because I'm used to the weather now, where it's like now my body's like, you need to sweat. And I'm like, oh no. So,
Wow.
but
So,
it's,
John Duncan is loving your stories. He's
oh,
he's our audience member in Tasmania.
oh,
Wonderful
nice. My
guy.
mom lives in Tasmania.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, my
Um,
mom lives in Devonport.
David has mentioned also New York is a big hub for movies. Obviously, that's Hollywood
Oh, for
East.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I wanted to ask you if you were involved with like Second City or the Groundlings, because some of the pictures I saw of you, you look like you were doing, live sketch
Yeah.
comedy with a
Yeah.
group. You know.
My wife did Groundlings for a while, and
Mhm.
I ended up doing Second City. I did their conservatory. It's funny because I did my initial training at SAC back in the 90s and did that whole program and played shows at SAC and things like that. And then I hadn't been in classes in a long time, workshops and stuff like that, but not a program. And so when we moved out here to LA, she got involved with Groundlings and then got involved with Second City. And I was like, I want to take Second City. This will be fun. And I did their whole conservatory program. And
Mhm.
then they offered a year-long directing program, which I did that the next year. And one of the photos I sent to you was the cast and the writer and director of a show called That's the End of Our Time, that it was what they call a premium show, and it's like Friday nights at Second City. A friend of mine named Mark Warzeka, really great director, very funny performer, writer, everything. Like from Second City in Chicago, and he was on Detroit. He was a writer on Detroiters because he's originally a Detroit guy. Really awesome dude. Has his own thing called Sketch School, which is really great. But he wrote a one act, and it's about a therapist that has fallen on hard times, and then he gets visited by all the holiday characters that all have problems, and he has to do a group therapy session. So I played an overeating Santa Claus, and yeah, it was, and
Another Santa.
It was super fun, though. The script was amazing. The show was super funny, and we did it, I think, it was going to have a pretty decent run, and I think we did the show 3 or 4 times. It was directed by a friend of mine named Ithamar Enriquez, who's another great, like, awesome comedian, director, actor, really great guy, super involved with Second City as well. And but I think we did the show maybe 3 or 4 times, and then the pandemic happened.
Yeah.
And then post-pandemic, unfortunately, Second City Hollywood did not survive, which is I think has left a bit of a hole in LA. We still have Groundlings. One of the Upright Citizens Brigade theaters still exists. There's another one called The Pack, which I think they might have roots in the Annoyance Theater in Chicago. So there's still a scene, but there's no
Annoyance.
Second City. Yeah, the Annoyance Theater in Chicago. That's a offshoot of Second City's. But yeah, the Second City Hollywood is no more, which is really unfortunate because it was a really great program, and I think all of the programs here had something really wonderful to offer. But the thing that I loved about Second City is I felt like Second City really gave you the training to become a collaborator and a creator, where there's like, you could, maybe you weren't as into the performing. Well, there were plenty of performers there. Maybe you were more into the directing. Maybe you wanted to do more of the sketch writing. Maybe it was an environment that I think really trained you and gave you the tools to learn how to get a group of people together and mount a show in a way that I thought was really wonderful. And it really empowered people. I mean, it was one of those theaters that were like, hey, if you have an idea, we have a stage, come pitch the idea. We'll have a night, we'll promote it. People can, and that's the kind of haven that I think maybe with the rest of my life, I want to eventually get to, where I can maybe have my own space somewhere and sort of have that idea again of let's create a lab where people can come in and run theatrical artistic experiments, and there can be a haven for creativity and for making bold choices and doing out there stuff and just getting it up and letting it live and breathe and see what it does. And that's, I think
that
now
sounds like a new chapter to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I want to do. I want to continue to get out there, continue to get in front of audiences, to continue to create things, continue to do all of that stuff. And then eventually, I think there's going to be, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I know that one day I will figure it out. How do I create my own thing and let it be a haven for artists to learn and train and create, and something that will exist after I'm gone? That's, I think, what my goal may be.
That's awesome.
And then also writing a bunch of novels that I haven't written yet.
Oh God, I'm working on 2 right now. Anyway,
yeah. I hear you.
You mentioned Dean Napolitano and some other people that have been on the show. Do you know Damien Poitier out there, or Ray Buffer?
Oh, those names sound familiar, but I'd have to see a picture to put a name with the Damon Poitier, especially. Oh, that sounds familiar. I may know him. I have to
Damian
look.
Poitier worked with me in Skull Kingdom here in Orlando, and he went out to
Oh,
LA.
fun. Yeah,
And
yeah.
he is actually the guy who is Thanos in the end credits of the original Avengers movie. He got that gig.
Oh, yes. I don't know that I know him, but what's funny is that I know a lot of like Florida expats that know him.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So when yeah.
So again,
Yeah.
I was trying to point out that small world thing again.
For sure, dude. No,
Performance.
it's incredible. I mean, like Karen White, we were just talking about. Like, that's a
Right.
small world that you know her. I
Right.
love the your beginning of your show. You have Carol Stein, who I mean, who doesn't
Yeah,
love
yeah, from Disney.
Carol
Yeah.
Stein and her amazing like
Lee Wolfson
musical.
started doing stand-up comedy. He was, he was with the puppets in a puppeteer. Her husband started out doing stand-up comedy when we were doing, stand-up comedy open mics and stuff in the late 80s, early 90s. Yeah, that's how I met her, was through Lee.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, again, just a small network, a small world.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
So before
Dude,
we
we haven't
go,
even this is crazy. I'm gonna have to come back so we can talk about
yeah,
China.
yeah. I've talked
I
about
want
China
to
a
hear
lot on
about
the
your
show with other
adventures.
people.
Oh, do you? Okay.
But yes, you've been to China. There's a picture of you on the Great Wall there.
Yeah.
I did want to talk to you about that, and unfortunately, that picture didn't get sent over to Renee. I forgot to send over the picture of us doing the off the cuffs comedy sketch together. But again, we'll have you
Yeah.
back on sometime, and talk some more
Yeah, that'd be
stories.
great, man. This has been awesome. Yeah, it's
So,
this has
but
been
I did
way
want you to
cool,
do a
man.
plug for your wife, Michelle Sims. Tell them where our audience, where they can find her and see her stuff.
Well, yeah. So Michelle Sims and myself, Arnie Ellis, we actually are both on Instagram and Facebook. She's under Shell Sims, CHELESIMMS at Instagram, and I'm Arnie Ellis at Instagram. But the thing is that we post all the same stuff. We like collaborate on it. So we have some little sketches that we do and some different characters, and we use sort of our Instagram. Our Instagrams have become sort of our platform for super quick sketch
Yeah.
comedy stuff. We've got different characters that we're doing. She has a thing she's doing now called Tori's Tours, where what we do is we go to every star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And she just goes, "Welcome to Tori's Tours. I'm Tori, Lee Marvin." And then we zoom in on the star, and that's it. And our goal is to do every star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and we try to put it out every day. And then for October,
I think she should give
we
misinformation. Like, I think he was in the movie Tortilla Flats.
It's just that. And I'm telling you, this is one of my dreams. I want to be 85 and I want to see my wife going, Machu Picchu, the Sphinx, the Great Pyramid. Like literally when we go out on the road, she's going to just put that outfit on and we'll just have that bit going. And that's all the bit is. And it's just anywhere we go, we just have her do that bit. And, it's one of those things where a lot of people want to create something online that gets the most likes. Sometimes I think there's merit in, could you do the most like dislikes? But in a pure way, like no low hanging fruit. Don't do anything offensive. Just create something that's so annoying and do it for as long as you possibly can. And see how many people it's so funny. But yeah. So
now,
that's
she's
kind of
got a
what we're
movie,
doing.
right, where she plays a Karen. Am I correct?
Yeah, she did. She's done a handful of movies. There's a
Right.
production company there called Renaissance, and they've made a handful of films. Michelle's been in some of them, and she did a movie that came out last year called A Christmas Karen, and it's
Right.
exactly what it sounds like. Right? It's a
Yes.
Karen that gets visited by ghosts, and a lot of people you may know were in it, and she sees error of her ways. But what was really cool is it got a really cool release last year. Like it was running on Pluto, and Pluto TV really promoted it, and she ended up doing like a live chat during it last year and
Oh,
all this
cool.
kind of stuff. It was like super fun. Yeah, it was really, really cool. But yeah, she's awesome. So yeah, you know how it is. It's,
Well,
you know
thank
what
you
it
so
is when you,
much.
thank you, man. Thank you. This has been
Thanks for
great.
coming out. And again, I knew it was going to be a wonderful show. You're an interesting guy. You've done a lot. And again, we've got a lot to cover still. So we'll have to get you back. We'll have to bring you back for sure.
I love it, man. I love it. Thank you all so much.
So we went 10 minutes overtime. So my friend Tom Cheshire, who loves to go overtime, he's very proud of us. So you have a great time out there. You have good holidays with Michelle. And again, we'll have you back on again real soon.
That sounds good. All right. Have a great holiday season, everybody.
Much
Take
love
care.
to you, brother. All right.